Thank you so much for joining me here today on The Ripple Effect with Ray. We've got Savannah Pidcock here, spiritual coach and teacher. So excited to have you. Thanks for joining.
I'm so excited to be here, Rachel. You're like getting me back in the podcasting groove, and I love it because mine I abandoned 6 months ago. So we're
Yeah.
bringing it back soon. It's a
We'll bring
sign.
it back. It's a sign from the universe or wherever, ethers. So tell me a little bit more about your business. How and why did you start?
I love that question. So it is so hard for me to summarize in a nutshell really what I really do. But I would say I'm a spiritual teacher and coach for women specifically, helping them tap into their highest soul potential. And how that comes about is in many different ways. Like I do a lot of quantum energy work. I do a lot of deep somatic work, breath work. I love working with people really closely, one-on-one for a long time. A lot of my clients have been with me for well over a year. I've been really full-time in this business. It's a little over 2 years now. I would call it from like January of 2024. I had gotten laid off from my prior career in corporate operations, business operations rather, for pharmaceuticals in the summer of 2023. And I had been doing this work on the side. I started off doing readings, Akashic readings, as you're well familiar with, in the summer of 2022. And so it was just a hobby. Like I had been really, it's almost like for many years there was two sides of me, and there was the corporate version of me, like a side that I led with in most social interactions, and then there was this like secret, more spiritual side of me that I was exploring probably since my early 20s. I'm 34 now, so I would say like well over a decade. And really what brought me into that work was some mental health issues. I'm an extremely sensitive person. So my moods would go really up and down, and I didn't really love Western medicine's answers to that. I was always searching for, okay, there has to be a way for me to feel better. I found energy healing. Actually, originally when I was 17, I found Reiki, and then I started doing different certifications in my early 20s. So it's like this thing that was always happening on the side. And after I got laid off, I realized I'd never spent more than 1 week not working in my adult life, and I'd mostly had multiple jobs. I used to be a fitness instructor too. There's been many eras. I spent that fall of 2023 doing like a lot of deep soul searching and just honestly giving myself a break, which I feel like as women, we never do. And it's so important for us to truly rest. And honestly, that ends up being a lot of what I coach women on is like, you just got to take a break and enjoy and be in your pleasure and actually tap into these lower chakras and like your creative centers. So you can really understand and listen to what is coming in for you intuitively and feel safe enough in the body to receive it and to work with it. So that was, I didn't know it at the time, but that's what I was doing that fall. And I decided in January that I wasn't going to go back, and I thought I was going to match my old corporate income in 3 months. That's hilarious. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. So here we are as we're recording this. It's now March of 2026. So it's a little over 2 years. And I always tell people, because I now mentor a lot of people who want to step into their own soul aligned work. Doesn't necessarily look like coaching and healing work like mine does, whatever that means for them. And I always tell people that following your calling is not the fastest way to make money, but it is the most rewarding and it's the most beautiful. And if you'd asked me, I don't know, maybe last week when I was like having a moment, it would have been a different answer. But right now, I'll tell you, like, overall, like, I'm so grateful and glad I took that leap of faith. And it's not just that one leap of faith, it's like consistent leaps of faith, consistently learning how to really believe in and love myself to an extent that I feel worthy of what I'm actually capable of on a soul plane level.
Absolutely. I think you touched on so many amazing little tidbits of A, like entrepreneurship, B, like feminine leadership. I feel like the life of an entrepreneur, it's not even like what a week looks like, but a single day, you might wake up and be like, I don't got this. Then maybe the next hour, you're like, I got this. Then the next hour, you're like, no, I actually don't think I got this. Let me go look for a corporate job. And then you end the day, okay, we're okay. We're good.
Yeah.
And maybe it sometimes follows you into your sleep. It doesn't, there's never like a specific off button in entrepreneurship, I feel like. There's,
No.
you could like when you're in the service industry, you clock in, clock out. Sometimes it might like the day might follow you or whatnot, but for the most part, there is an end, a start and end. Versus when you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't really stop. It doesn't, it just flows.
Yeah.
And I love the name of your business, the Savvy Flow. I play on your name, right? And
Yeah.
then flow. So say a little bit more about this flow state, or where did that necessarily come from?
I love that. I think the original intent with it, and that it's so funny, like what a name is when we feel called to name something, because I feel like it means something different at later points in time. The original intent for that name was really about finding a state of flow because you're living in alignment to your soul,
Mm.
which is a very hard thing to do, as I'm sure I would say it's definitely the more challenging path to take versus staying in your comfort zone and your ego. Really, like your soul path is going to stretch you, it's going to challenge you, it's going to be scary. I think one of the really beautiful tools I teach, fear alchemy, it's really like diving not headfirst maybe into your biggest, greatest fears, but tackling your fears one by one and through that process reclaiming your power. And I think now the name to me, it's evolved into more of me working with women specifically really closely and finding like what it means to be an empowered woman going after her dreams while also enjoying the process and doing it from a state of pleasure and flow and aliveness. And it doesn't mean feeling good all the time. I think that's a lie we're sold, or maybe even like earlier stages of my own journey when I was looking for something to just help me feel better. And I was not it was just like, oh, okay, this thing makes me feel better. That just chasing that high. And that a lot in people who do any type of like personal growth work or spiritual work. I sit with a lot of plant medicine. There's people who just chase the ceremony. It's called like chasing the dragon, like,
Mhm.
and not really integrating it. It's the integration. And for women, it's like that descent into the body that can feel really scary, especially when you run a lot of trauma from like this lifetime, from other lifetimes, whatever. And I feel like flow to me really means you're learning how to ride those waves and stay in your center. And
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's, yeah, especially when we're sensitive, it's hard to do that. But it's a study. That's why it's a practice.
exactly. Like we don't judge the ocean for having waves. We don't tell the ocean, hey, you need to calm down. You don't have waves today, right? It's still gonna do what it does. The waves come and go, they recede. It's up to us how we choose to ride them. We can resist them, we can choose to try to push against them, but they're still going to come. So we might as well just understand that life ebbs and flows and that it's going to have its highs, it's going to have its lows, and it's just a matter of controlling how we respond to some of those curveballs that life throws our way. So tell me a little bit about what have you been seeing specifically in the industry and the whether it be coaching industry or even some of the maybe the clients, the women that you work with. What are you noticing when it comes to maybe the like how people are looking at their dream vision, their dream life? I'll leave it there.
I love this question. I could talk for hours about both the coaching industry and kind of the other question you're asking, which I think is what's happening with women in the corporate landscape. Because most of the clients I work with, again, I come from that background, work for, I'd say now it's about a mix, like some, like about half and half, like starting their own businesses or have their own businesses or work in the corporate landscape. And I'll answer the coaching industry question first because I feel like the coaching industry gets a really bad rap. And for the longest time, I hated calling myself a coach, but it is a term that people understand a little bit more in day-to-day vernacular in 2026. So I've leaned into it a bit more. But at first, I was like a coach, like a coach. This is like beneath me. I got a big ego. We've had to integrate, or we are integrating, I should say. Anyway, I digress. The coaching industry, I feel like I first came upon it in 2020, 21 time frame, and I was like seeing all these people making money doing things that I just considered like a hobby, which was healing work, different types of energy work, like talking about intuition, talking about all things spiritual. and they were making like a lot of money online. Like the coaching industry pre-COVID was like the wild west. And even I would say like through the beginning of COVID. And to some extent it still is. It's like it's a newer industry. It's pretty unregulated. It doesn't really, it's not like becoming a doctor where you need to have an MD or a DO if you're talking about in the United States. Like you need to have the credentials, you go to school for it. Anybody can hang up a shingle and be like, I'm a coach of what, you know? And so I do feel like what's cool now, and I personally invested in some things that I regret around that time frame, early COVID time frame, but it taught me a lot about discernment and really I think there's people doing powerful, beautiful work in this space too, like really life-changing, transformational work. I know I've received that. I like to think I've given that. I have the testimonials to prove it. And I think what's really powerful is that the industry is shifting to a little bit more of a matured state. So the quality of work that people are offering is actually being forced to evolve, or you're really seeing people who are very skilled getting more of the attention versus the people who are just good at content creation on Instagram. And I love, sometimes I can be like, damn, I wish I got in the content game in like 2015. I think we all have our own timing around things. And I actually think it's a beautiful time to be in this industry as much as I was like, I don't want to be a coach. And then your second question about just what's I really find, and I see in my clientele, like I work with a lot of women, I would say primarily spanning like their late 20s through 30s, even some into their 40s, generally come to more of like my in-person stuff, like retreats and events. And I do feel like there's a little bit of an existential crisis that ambitious, intelligent women face when we do all the right things. And you're like, I've gone and I've gotten the graduate degree maybe, or I went to the really amazing college. Like I went to Vanderbilt, for example. So I also have a lot of college friends who are very successful and like ticking the box, following the things, doing all the things that we thought would make us happy, including maybe like getting married, having kids, like all these milestones that you're sold are like the thing. And what I'm finding now is that people are really taking a step back and like women especially are like this structure, this patriarchal structure that exists within our entire world, but especially within the corporate landscape it doesn't work for me and just admitting that they're not happy in what they're doing and they're seeking like if I'm not happy doing this then what is that and I believe it's really about coming into right relationship with ourselves and from that place of wholeness within, offering what we're meant to do for service to the world that brings us that felt sense of fulfillment that can only really come from that. And I
Mm,
think it's cool because it's happening like at a time that the world really needs it. Shit's a little weird out there. Like it's a little crazy. And what a beautiful time to be alive, basically, to be a woman. It's like the best of the best and sometimes the worst of the worst, but mostly the best of the best.
absolutely. There's so much out there right now as far as just what we think will be that thing that will make us happy, that will bring us joy, or we get in the cycle of comparison to we have all these like messages, ads being fed right in our fingertips, and you need this thing, or even comparing ourselves to our peers. And it's hard to really, you mentioned this word discern. How do we actually connect with ourselves? What does that actually look like? What, if you could share like one little thing that might help somebody let's reconnect, maybe what that might look like just as a maybe even first step. What
I
does
love
connecting with
this.
yourself mean to you?
I love this question. Yeah, it's really very simple things. I always tell people and I even had some powerful realizations in the past that I'm like, oh, that was it. That was the whole thing. But just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy to apply necessarily. My main thing, I teach an entire course on intuition. And the way that I teach it, I'm like, it's all about getting rid of everything that is clouding your channel and what has always been there, basically. So, as much as you can quiet the noise, as much as you can getting out into nature. I love a consistent meditation practice. I can't say I'm always perfect with that, but that was really a game changer in my life. I do a lot of inner child work as well, so that's really powerful for reconnecting to like our own sense of pleasure, whatever you found fun as a little kid, like revisiting those practices, just creating a bit of space, especially if you're someone who has a lot of responsibility, whether that be at work or at home, whatever amount of time that you can create to carve out for yourself and ultimately to get in relationship to your higher power, whatever that looks like for you, the universe, God, source, whatever term, even if it's just nature itself, the earth around us, to understand like that there's something bigger and vaster than us can also provide like a bit of a sense of peace of, oh, I don't have to figure this out. I don't have to do it alone. I'm supported deeply by the seen and the unseen. And I think developing that can give us a deeper, start to really deepen the relationship, like I said, with ourselves, which is the place from which like everything begins and ends. It's like whatever you believe you're worthy of is what you will attract into your life, which is a bit more like manifestation stuff. But yeah, I love just like the simple things. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not potent and powerful.
And you mentioned it that like neither one of us are perfect, far from it, right? As far as just like, oh, I wish I could say I journal every single morning and every single night, and then I wake up every morning and have lemon water and sit on my yoga mat and have a perfect little like meditation practice, because that's just not my life. I'm a mom and I have a 3.5-year-old, and a lot of times my morning just looks like basically trying to get him dressed and run out the door. It's really about, okay, what can we set aside time for? What can we actually carve out in our day where we reconnect with ourselves? So just, I love that even just like mentioning, I hope that most people realize that even their most like, a lot of times people put spiritual teachers, yoga teachers, whoever it is, a pedestal at times. And it's, none of us are perfect and far from it. And we just are here. We know that we feel like there's this push and this pull of we need to share our gifts with the world and have this like we have this ability to sit and maybe hold space for people, and recognizing, okay, we're not so different from our clients a lot of the time, and giving them that belief that whether they want to be a spiritual teacher or something else or whatever that might be, but just helping them realize that no, we're not any different. Like you can connect and build this relationship with yourself as well. And how do we, this, I think this term is used a lot, but like, how do we come back home? Like,
Yeah.
how do we come home to ourselves? All that being said, I'm sure you probably have faced quite a few things along the way. What has been like a big teacher or challenge that you've maybe overcome in recent years?
How much time do you have? It is, I always say entrepreneurship is a spiritual game, and then you throw, I want to be a spiritual entrepreneur on top of that and integrity. That is like, it is deeply humbling. I'm moving away from this paradigm of thinking that everything has to be so hard to be worthwhile. That's something I'm personally working on right now. So I'm trying to watch like how many times I say things are hard, but yeah, I would say I am a deeply impatient person by nature. And I actually was told in a Akashic read with my first Akashic teacher a really long time ago that it was because my soul has six-dimensional origin, and in the sixth dimension, thought immediately manifests into reality. And I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense because I have no patience. And so for me, a lot of my testing work comes from needing to hold the faith and the belief in myself and rooting to the vision, even when I'm not getting the outcome I desired, whether it's like immediately or I am super psychic. I'm actually, and you probably know this too, like psychic gifts are very difficult when applied to yourself. Like it's easier to do that work for other people because we have our own like emotional attachments and mental interference. And sometimes you just need to learn certain lessons along the way. And I feel like there's this common thread always through the challenges I've faced, which is really always inviting me into believing in myself, like no matter what, and ultimately like loving myself even when I fail at something. Like failure is part of entrepreneurship. It's part of life in general, to be honest. But I feel like it especially comes up in entrepreneurship because in a way, like you're more invested. Like these are your ideas. This is your venture. This is your thing. And it's really hard to take those failings and not to take it personally because it's like it's so close to you. And that's been a big process for me is really understanding that because somebody doesn't buy something for me, because some idea flopped, because in my personal life, like I tend to move a lot. Like a lot of Pisces and I'm navigating a lot of escapism tendencies myself. But I move a lot. And when that, if it doesn't work out in the way that I thought it was going to, even in relationship stuff, it's like, how do we take these things as learning lessons without letting it become part of our identity and taking it in as a personal failing, essentially? And that is a study that I'm still working on, but I do think as I track back, like all the different kind of like ups and downs I've had in the last couple of years, especially in doing my own thing, it really all comes back to believing and loving yourself, which is so much easier said than done.
So much easier said than done. If only we could just say, yeah, just self-love, just more self-love
Yeah.
and just apply it. If it was like, just take this like self-love supplement and like just keep taking it every morning.
I would love that. Can we need to find something? And yeah, I do think it's also aligned action. Like I will say that, like I always, when I teach like more business minded stuff, I teach it as like 70 to 80% energetics and like your alignment and 20 to 30% the practical action taking. You do need to take action and you do need to stay consistent. A lot of the people that you see who have a lot of the quote like success, which again, who knows really what it really looks like behind the curtain, but like outward facing success, it's not necessarily because they're the most gifted and talented, it's because they stay the course. My dad's been a successful entrepreneur for like 40 years, and though he doesn't have any idea what I actually do, he's not a spiritual guy. Our relationship's been really interesting these last few years because I've taken a lot of advice from him, and he always says he's a man, so he's like, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and like all these things. But truly, it's not for the faint of heart, and I do think it's so deeply rewarding when you get to own your own time, share your gifts. You know, when something does work out, and like the launches, when people are buying the thing, or you're working with a client who feels really aligned and lights you up, or you're getting maybe I'm giving a lot of examples from my type of work, but like translates to other industries, like that is like an indescribable sort of feeling. And it was that feeling that honestly inspired me to go down this route. It was like a master class I taught in December of 23 for free. And I was like, oh shit, like I didn't know I could feel like this. And honestly, that's what we're always like chasing when we're like wanting outcomes of things. It's not the thing, it's the feeling within.
Yeah.
And we can create that.
And we can create that, and that's what we are. We can show up in our most empowered self, and that's all we can really do. And then I think the outcomes kind of just follow, and just being in integrity, being in our own authenticity. And I think that's really what paves the path, leads the way, and staying the course, as you mentioned. So tell me, Savannah, what's in the ethers? What's in the future for you coming up? I know in one of our other calls you said you're prepping for a retreat. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I have a few different facets to my business, one of which is in-person retreats. I'm doing one in May in Joshua Tree. As of right now, us recording this, there's one spot left, which I think is getting taken right now, but there will be more. I started off doing a lot of like events when I lived in New York, and I do when I'm in LA, because I'm technically based out of LA, though I'm traveling right now. I do a lot of events as well. The bread and butter of the business, though, is really my online work. So I run a community focused on healing, on ceremonial work on a monthly basis, really healing deeply of the sister wound and actually like being in community with other women who speak this language that has women from all over the world in it. So that's more of like my membership community space. And then I'm actually launching a mastermind for women who want to tap into higher order levels of their potential. It's called Priestess of Potential, and that's going to be coming in April. So I'm really excited about that because most of the work I've done in my one-on-one work in the last like 8 to 9 months or so has been helping women tap into what that looks like for them. And I think the cool thing about the way that I approach it versus some others I've seen is that I'm not interested in making people little carbon copies of me. Like you might feel called to do similar type of work to what I do. And if that's the case, great, I'll teach you everything that I know. And I am interested in helping women align to their gifts, to their mission, to the thing that's going to light them up. And maybe that's even being a mom. Maybe it's staying in the corporate game and bringing in more empathic leadership to that space. Like it can run the gamut of many different things. I work with women who are building styling businesses. I work with women who are doing very similar work to me, but more with a nervous system approach, all these different things. And what it boils down to is really stepping into that identity And that version of you, as I like to say it in the quantum field, who already has the thing. And you can magnetize that to you with creating the feeling in the now. So it's really exciting. Like I love having a business that's hybrid online and in person. I feel like nothing replaces in-person connection. And it's not feasible to do that all the time. And I have friends from all over the world that I connect with and Telegram and messaging all the time. And that really brings a lot of joy and consistency to my life that no matter where I go, I have my people. So I love that. And it's again, it's what I built that works really well for me and what I love and how my life runs. And it might look really different for somebody else, but yeah, that's what I got coming up.
Amazing. It sounds like you have just a great combo, like you said, of the combo of in person and virtually. So how and where can people find you? And I'll include it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, so it's my business name at The Savvy Flow on both TikTok and Instagram. I try to use TikTok as like my TikTok's like my diary. So if you want to see, it's a little bit of different content that goes on those two platforms. And then the website is exactly the same. It's just thesavvyflow.com. And I love connecting with people. If you are listening to this and you want to connect with me, but please send me a DM. Like I love being on social media for that reason. And I really love just like having conversations with people who this type of content resonates with. So would love to connect.
I'm super excited to hear what our listeners have to say about today's episode. Thanks again for joining me on The Ripple Effect with Ray. Savannah, it's been such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much.